I just went live already. Started it. Or it's starting.
Sandra, it's going live, okay?
And then I'm gonna check if I'm logged in.
We're still having some
Yeah.
technical difficulties. You can see it?
Yeah.
So, Sandra, can you hear me? Just checking again. We're still having some technical difficulties. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah? For those of you who have been waiting for us to go live since 2 p.m., we appreciate so much you hanging around and just asking questions and waiting for us to go live. We had some technical difficulties, but I believe that it's sorted out now, so we should have a smooth sailing from here. So, Sandra, thank you very much. Sonia, not Sandra. I was just speaking with a Sandra. So now I'm saying
No,
Sandra.
it's Sandra.
So, Sonia, thank you very much for joining me today. We are going to talk about something that is difficult to talk about, but is very necessary to talk about. And I believe that in society, we try to hide topics like this, we try to sweep it under the rug, we try to avoid it, and that is sexual trauma. So, our topic today is sexual trauma and its impact on intimacy. Now, at some point in our lives, every one of us will go through some sort of trauma. It could be from a disaster, it could be from a situation that happened within your relationship, it could be from a parent or family, other family member. It could be just from anything that we go through. We experience trauma in our lives. So, one form of trauma is sexual trauma. And let me just explain a little bit what trauma is. When you have that distressing psychological, physical, or emotional situation with that reaction to something that scares you or hurt you, we feel that in our bodies, and that's trauma. We carry trauma from childhood into adulthood, and even things that happen in our past, we still carry those. And so we I'm sorry, I'm just looking here because I see someone trying to join, and it just caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting anyone to join here. So that's why. But if you can just let me double check. So we're supposed to have people join here, right? Okay, just checking with my technician right here. Okay, so let's just continue on sexual trauma.
Or they can join the Facebook Live, that's fine.
Yeah, you can also join the Facebook Live. You can go on Facebook on Nasheba. Just look for Nasheba Barzey, Nasheba Barzey, Barzey, and you should be able to join our Facebook Live from there. So back to sexual trauma. Sexual trauma is when you experience some distress from being exposed to sexually inappropriate behaviors. But I want to say this though, it doesn't have to be necessarily be that you're exposed to only inappropriate sexual behavior. There are other instances where a person can experience sexual trauma, and as we move forward, I'll come back and I'll explain some of those. But I think what I want to do now, I'm going to just have a conversation with Sonia, and she will share with us her personal experiences and any emotions at all that she has felt while experiencing sexual trauma. And then she's also willing to share how sexual trauma has impacted intimacy for her. So at this point, I'm going to just turn to Sandra, and I will allow Sandra to, just tell us what she's comfortable telling us. But before I do that, I just want to say this. Sonia, if at any time you feel as if it becomes too difficult for you to talk about this or continue on, you just let me know. If you don't have words, you just raise your hand and I'll know what that means. And we can either end it and pick up on it another time, or you can just take a break while I continue talking and then you let me know when you're ready to go. And again, just some house rules. Although this is a public forum, I'm asking everyone to have respect for each other. I will answer questions, and I'm sure Sandra is willing to answer questions. But if it's a question that is difficult, or if it's a question that I believe will kind of evoke some emotional, distressing emotions or anything, I may not answer that question right here. But you can always reach out to me through my email, send me a message through a direct message through Messenger, or however you want to contact me. Again, my name is Nashiba Buzz, and you can easily find me. And I want you guys to know also that I am a licensed mental health therapist. I am licensed in Washington State, and I'm also licensed in California. So I still, although this is a public forum, I still want, again, everybody to just be respectful with each other. Your questions, if you have questions, be mindful of the way you ask the question. And again, sexual trauma is a sensitive topic, so I may not answer all of your questions here. And I don't want you guys to expect that I will, or feel as if I'm ignoring you or not answering, but I will answer the questions even if it has to be at a later time. Sonia, do you feel comfortable moving on now?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to Sonia. And Sonia, you share with us what you feel comfortable sharing. So, what has been your experience with sexual trauma, and tell us, where did that come from?
Um, I think that the first time that I can fully remember, like details vividly, I was about 5 or 6,
Okay.
and it was someone associated with the family. And there was a situation. I was at my grandmother's house, and she was watching her soap operas, and she got up to go into the kitchen to check on the food that she was cooking, and
Mm-hmm.
the man reached over and started touching me where he wasn't supposed to. And I looked towards the kitchen to see if my grandma was coming, and he put his finger up to his lips to tell me to be quiet, and he sat back like nothing ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though I was 5, it didn't feel right. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know, did I do something? As a
Mm-hmm.
kid, I think that's the first thing that comes to your mind is, this doesn't feel good. Did I do something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to think it's you, because there's just no way that an adult would do something wrong. You know,
Yes.
that's as a child. And so over the years, things like that would take place. I actually had someone associated with the family that would come and pick me up from school, high school. Tell me, oh, I'm going to take you to get some lunch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being naive and trusting and wanting to trust
Mm-hmm.
places you in situations that you can't get out of, and you don't know what to say. You don't know how to express, this isn't right, this isn't good.
Yeah.
And so I allowed this grown man, and I was about 15 or 16, to do things to me and with me that I wasn't okay with, but I didn't know how to say anything about it, because my fear was, I'm going to get in trouble because I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make matters worse, he would give me money afterwards. So as I went on with life, I understood that this was like, hush hush money. Don't say anything. But it made me feel like I was a prostitute, which I knew was wrong. So I didn't do anything about it. Um, I became angry. I became, they say you act out. So I started doing things that were outside of my character, being wild, being promiscuous, because at this age, when you're dealing with a child and you're doing these things, you are activating hormones that aren't supposed to be dealt with. And you're giving me a false sense of what intimacy is. So I looked at the act of sex as something simple like a duty, or something you could do with anyone, a handshake or a hug or whatever. So it allowed me to be promiscuous. And at some point, I think I felt like it was my duty, as a woman, this is what I'm supposed to do, because that's what I was groomed to think.
Okay.
And so going into relationships with people that I'm emotionally connected with and thinking that I'm in love with them, I didn't feel that sense of intimacy that you would generally have in that environment. It became that any sexual encounter reminded me of the previous encounters, and it felt not right. So I think, to sum it up, I was angry with myself for not protecting the child me. And then I became frustrated with the adult me, because even though I knew those things were not right, I didn't take any steps to change that or to correct it or to stand up for myself. And I kind of followed in that same pattern until I just decided enough was enough. I think it was 2018 when I finally started to heal.
Okay. Do you mind if I just interject right here? So you said a few things that I'm taking notes, by the way, that I jot down. And one of the things that's popping out to me is the way you continue to use the word allow. At 5 years old, I don't think you are allowing anyone to touch you inappropriately. I mean, I want you to release that. I want you to just get that whole belief out of, just throw that out. And we can talk about that some more. But you did not allow an adult to violate you, your young self. And it's so unfortunate that so many kids have to go through this and then still feel so guilty that because they are believing that they did something wrong, to allow an adult to touch them inappropriately. So that's one thing I wanted to just interject and say. So we are going to do some reframing later on where you will not be using allow. You did not allow anyone to touch you inappropriately without your consent. And then you also said that you became angry. And that's expected, but again, as a child, you were not supposed to have that responsibility of protecting yourself. That is why you had parents, and that's why when there are no parents, someone else is put in place to protect you, protect your rights, but to keep you safe. And yes, to a certain extent, you can do things as a child to protect yourself, but that's not something you should feel that at 5 years old you have an obligation to do. At 5 years old, you don't even know when to walk out in the street or not walk out in the street or run out in the street after a ball that you've been playing with. So those two things I just wanted to bring to your attention and just validate for you right now that that was not your issue, your problem. Okay? And again, you did not allow anyone to touch you inappropriately. So let me validate that for you right now. Okay. You can continue sharing.
Okay. I think it might have been 2013 or 2014, the man that used to give me the money after he did things passed away. And I always wondered in my head, like, if I ever saw him, how would I respond? How would I deal with him? What would I say? And so when he passed and I didn't get that opportunity, I became angry with myself because I felt like I cheated myself for some type of closure. And in speaking with another family member that was related to him and her experiences with things that he's done, you know, to other people, not necessarily to her, but that she had to become involved with, I was able to actually finally break free, so to speak, and tell someone about it. And we ended up calling my mom, and I just kind of broke down the situation and what was going on. And all of these things that happened, because they weren't strangers, I felt like my mom and my dad had the, you know, responsibility of protecting me. And the people that I was around when I was around my father, because my mom and dad, they got a divorce when I was about 6 years old. So when I was around him, I was protected. But when I was around my mom's family, I didn't feel protected. And it changed the dynamic of our relationship up until I was about 50 years old. I felt like you were supposed to protect me and you didn't. You dropped the ball. Yeah. I felt like I had no other. I just felt like me telling what's going on wasn't an option because I felt like it was going to be on me. And, you know, again, this is from a child standpoint. I felt like somehow it was going to be my fault and I was going to be in big trouble. And it just made it difficult for us to have a relationship because I was angry. And it took me a long time to forgive her. Okay. And then when I finally, you know, discussed things that was going on with me, she let me know some things that she had dealt with. And so then it came to a point where I started to see that I'm not the only one that's going through this. And no one feels safe to say anything. There's this stigma that the victim is the one to blame. They did something, they were in the wrong place. Why do people keep coming to me with this behavior? What did I do to, you know, do I have a sign on me that says, you know, please violate me? What's going on? And I really wish our community was more on board with therapy back then. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that I grew up with, friends, family, that went through these similar things. And none of us received any type of retribution as, you know, the person that did this being held accountable. We weren't taken to any type of counseling. And so you go through life emotionally disillusioned because what you think it's supposed to be isn't for you. And so you can't see, you know, intimacy is supposed to be a good thing. So you start to drink and you start to, you know, do drugs or whatever. And I'm just speaking for myself, but that was like the commonality that I was seeing with others that I spoke to, you know, later on in life, that we all kind of went through those same similar things. Like you said, it took me a while to understand that I didn't allow those things, that I'm a child and I can't do anything with an adult. The adult should have known better. Okay. But just explaining, you know, from where I was at, it took my kids to all move out and get grown for me to unlock this trunk of all this bad stuff that I had put in there because I have to function as a parent. I don't have time to deal with this. And it was like all my problems came out like, okay, what are we going to do now? You don't have nothing else to do. And I had to deal with how I felt. I was ashamed. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it unless they opened up and said something to me first. Now I'm not that way.
Okay. So
Um,
from as you went through the stages, from child to adulthood, what then would you say? What changes did you see within or notice within yourself in terms of your understanding of what was inappropriate or what was not, or what
mhm.
became obligations for you?
um, as far as the trauma that I went through, what
As
became the obligation?
So as you were sharing, you talk about feeling as if it it became something like having people like intimacy, and with intimacy, I'm including sex, I'm including all that stuff, touching, everything. So with that, you said earlier, it started feeling as if you had to do these things. You just saw it as like, this is what I'm supposed to do, and so I'm just going to do it. But as a 5-year-old child, I'm sure did you have that feeling or thoughts? And then once you got to being a teenager, I'm sure that changed. And then now you're an adult. Did you recognize any changes in your thinking or belief that this was something that you had to do or participate in?
I think once I reached puberty and some of my friends were doing certain things, is around the time when those feelings kicked in. As a child, I didn't really understand what it was. It felt different. I couldn't figure out what this new thing was, what those feelings were. Um, The only way that I can quantify it really is it felt like this is bad, but it kind of feels good. And I don't know. I kind of like the attention. So I think it more so fed into that. But again, they groom you.
And
So,
and Sonia, again, I'm just interjecting right here because I want to just point something out to you and the listeners as we go, because I asked you that specific question to get to what you just said. You started from a child, you knew, you felt like, no, ew, this does not feel good. But as you started growing and going into teenage years and adulthood, you started feeling like, oh, I like this, and maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Is that correct in what you just explained?
yeah.
Okay. So that's one thing that, that's the change that I was asking about, if you recognize it. And it's not that you started liking it. It's so important. The important thing you said here is that it started feeling that way to you because your body started feeling as if, okay, this is what that's supposed to do. And so your thoughts then became, okay, well, I guess, this is what I'm supposed to do. So now I'm just going to ride with it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, even though you felt as if, okay, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do, did you have any negative emotions that came with it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Um, I think I say yes because of the attention. Most teenage girls want the attention. Because I was now getting attention from boys my age and not just these gross men.
Okay.
It made it where, oh, I could show you this new thing that someone taught me. Or if another older man approached me, it was more apprehensive because then the gross, the ooh, and I don't like this, but I'm going to learn something I can show somebody else. Or if the younger boys, my age, did it, it was like something my body was reacting to and I didn't know why.
Okay.
Um,
And I just want to do a check-in with
and
you
it
right
was the
here.
stigma, the younger girls, when they found out someone was having sex, it was frowned upon, it was talked about. So you didn't want anyone to know. And so then I think it became excitement because I'm doing something nobody knows about and I don't have to tell them about it, but I'll be ashamed if they do find out.
Okay.
I think that's the most honest way I can put it.
And I definitely appreciate your honesty. And now that you are, I'm just going to say, a grown woman, and you know, you have shared some of this with me, but if you are comfortable sharing it with the public, anyone listening, how has sexual trauma impacted your sexual interactions with your current partner as an adult? If you're comfortable talking about
It's
that.
difficult because now it's based off of something that I never had it based off of. It was actually based off of love and not just lust, not just someone wanting power over me or someone taking advantage of me.
Okay.
And it's hard for me to reciprocate that because it still feels kind of duty-ish, so to speak. Um, Not that I don't love my husband, but it's hard to transition into the healed mind versus the traumatized, survival mode mind. And so, I'll just say, so, when you are, I call it tampered with, is the phrase that I use. People
Tampered
get
with. Okay.
so out of sorts when you say sexual trauma, but if you tamper with a child way before their puberty starts, you kick off things that aren't supposed to be kicked off yet. And so it left me with a sense of advancement when it came to sex. And so it was hard to find the common ground when you're trying to have intimacy with someone rather than just sex.
Can you explain that a little bit more for us from your experience? I can help you with that, but I would like to hear it from your experience.
Um, Sex became like a game for me
Okay.
after all of the sexual trauma. So it was kind of like, I know what I can do. I know why people have come to me because they've taught me to do what I can do.
Okay.
Can you keep up or can you hang? And most of the time, no.
Okay.
So it was really hard for me to actually enjoy it because I was the more dominant one. Versus intimate sex, where you're not in a competition. It's you sharing love with someone else, and it's different and it's difficult because I didn't view it that way. And so now my husband has to teach me what intimacy is. Because we've all watched Color Purple. I felt like they do their business and they get off. Like, that was just how I looked at sex. I didn't look at it as something that was shared out of love.
Okay. You said you just thought they just did their business and then move on.
Mhm.
And there are so many people who feel that way and think that way, even into adulthood. it's as if, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is, this is what sex is. So a lot of people, and notice I'm not saying just women, although I'm tempted to sometimes say women, I just want to point out that men experience sexual trauma as well. So if I slip up and just say women here, please know that I'm including men as well, because I am very aware that men experience sexual trauma. But there's so
I
many
don't think
people,
they view it as trauma
they don't, and that's a whole
because
other
for a man,
topic.
it's kind of like this macho
Macho
thing,
thing. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
it.
you're supposed to. They
Yeah.
encourage a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different.
Yeah.
It's definitely different for
It
men and
is
women.
different, but there are also those men who, who don't view it like that, because some men are touched in violent ways, or like you said, tampered with in violent ways, and some men are not always, don't always have that macho attitude, and so they are in, impacted by it in a negative manner. I've heard different stories. I've heard men who, became promiscuous, or I've heard about men who shy away from that stuff, just like it would affect you and I as women, and who have difficulty accepting love and showing love or giving love. Some men don't know how to accept that stuff. And then in some relationships, you find that a lot of relationships go through difficult times because there's some sexual trauma there, but they are not able, the people involved, the partners are not able to recognize that that's what it is. For instance, you may have a situation where the husband or just the male partner is wondering why I can't touch her. Why every time I try to touch my wife, she turns away, or she moves away, or she just lay there, or she's not giving me that affection that I want. And there may be some sexual trauma there that he's not aware of, and maybe she's not even aware of it, because you don't always know what is going on with you when you experience those symptoms. It could be, some people experience anxiety. Some people may go into depression. There's a whole lot of, some people may even get eating disorders. And I know I have you sharing, and so I want to share something as well. I was also in a situation where I was left with some sexual trauma. And earlier when we started, I said that it doesn't always come from those inappropriate touching the way we are talking about it. And I like to
Hmm.
share this with people because this is another thing to look out for. So when I was a teenager, and I'm from a Caribbean background, as you can tell, I'm sure, and our culture is is strict in terms of doing sexual stuff at a young age and all that stuff. Our parents were very tough on it. At least my mother was. So it came to a point where the neighbor, someone told my mother that I was talking to a boy or seeing a boy, whatever it is they told her I was doing. But she didn't like that, and she wasn't satisfied with me saying, no, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing anything. Yes, I'm talking to boys, but I'm not doing anything. So she thought it was best to take me to the doctor.
Hmm.
But she did not realize the negative impact that would come from that. Because although she got her answer and her answer was favorable to her, that left me feeling violated. Because here I am going to the doctor to get, tested because she wants to know if I've had sex or not. Well,
Hmm.
I'm angry because how dare you take me to have a stranger do this to me? And that's how I looked at it.
Right.
And so that's one way that I had to realize, recognize that I had some sexual trauma from that. So as parents, we're not always aware of the things that we're doing with our kids that would leave them with stuff like sexual trauma. And then
Hmm.
in my culture, or in my, we say village, in my little village or community, spirituality or Christianity, whatever you want to call it, religious, religious religion is one of those very important aspects in our culture, in our community. So, trusting a pastor is is almost like you better trust the pastor type thing.
Hmm.
You dare not say that that pastor is not trustworthy. How are you going to go and tell your family that the pastor touched you inappropriately? So we have all these different things going on that contributes to a person's sexual trauma, and then it becomes so difficult to even figure that out. And talking about the eating disorders or eating issues that come as a result of that. So growing up, I mean, I'm getting old now. I know I don't look the same. I mean, I would stand up and show you my physiques, but I'm not gonna do that. But you know, I know I don't look the same, but I still got a little something going on, right? But growing up, that was one of the things that used to be like, that used to hurt me, to have men tell me about the shape of my body. It was just like a constant thing. So then I started thinking, well, maybe if I start eating, I'll get fat. No, I won't have that cute little shape that they always want to talk about. So I started doing that, but I wasn't getting fat. So now it's like I'll go, even now as an adult, sometimes I don't want to eat because that's linked to my sexual trauma. So it's just so much that goes on within this topic. This is a huge topic that could take a lifetime talking about and sharing experiences. And I don't want to take away from your story, Sonia, because that's very important that you're sharing. So I think I want to just go back to you telling, sharing with us some of the ways you recognized that your relationship with your husband in terms of being intimate were impacted because of your sexual trauma.
Um, it's hard to switch out of trauma mode
Mm-hmm.
into a healing place when it comes to that because it's easy to get triggered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's certain sounds, songs,
Mm-hmm.
positions, just certain things that remind you of the trauma, and it's like a light switch and it just switches off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find yourself going in that headspace that you went through to get through your trauma while it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not his fault. So then you start to feel bad that you're making him have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's aware of some of my past trauma from some of our webinars. He sits there while I'm talking,
Okay.
but we haven't fully had the discussion. Like I say the man and the name. Even though I'm a victim, I don't feel like I have the right, especially since most of the people that are responsible for my trauma are no longer here. I don't think I have the right to, even though I am a victim, to affect their family and friends' view because that person's not here to speak for themselves. I can tell my truth without
Mm-hmm.
including them
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like they're not a part of my healing. They were a part of why I had to heal. And so for me, not saying, their names or their identity,
Mm-hmm.
it's more from because this isn't about them anymore.
Mm-mm.
That window that I had to say something
Mm-hmm.
has, long gone.
Yeah.
And so I just want to focus on me. And so it's not so much as protection for them, but that was how I felt for a
Mm-hmm.
while is that you're not saying anything, you're protecting the perpetrator. And that wasn't it at all. I had to understand, no, I'm just going to focus on me and my healing, and they're not a part of it.
Okay.
And that's not for everyone. Some people feel vindicated when they're able to, point the finger or whatever, but that just I think that that window of opportunity, passed, and so I kind of just dropped that aspect altogether.
Okay. One thing I want to bring up with you or raise is that I want to ask you this question first. Do you believe that you are at the point where you can sit and have those difficult, conversations about your sexual trauma and your experiences being violated? Are you there where you can have that discussion with your husband?
With him, yes. I tried previously with a good friend that was a man, and the response that I received um, prevented me from ever trying to ever talk to another man about it again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I am the way I am now, I refuse to be a victim. You're not going to just treat me any kind of way or anyone else. Like, I'm very vocal about that.
Okay.
And when they met me, I had that type of an attitude. So, sometimes people get this, they just get this wrong perception of you based on what point of life you're in when they meet you.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to explain to somebody the 16-year-old me and the 20, 30, and 40 something year old me are different.
Mm-hmm.
Mind frame is different. Had
Yes.
someone have done all of that while I was in my 20s or 30s, or I'd have gave them the business. But as a child, I didn't feel protected, so I didn't feel like I could say anything or do anything. I come from an era where kids are seen and not heard.
Okay.
So I didn't feel like, you could tell your family that someone talked to you crazy or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
you always end up getting in trouble. And I didn't want that.
Okay. And that's one of those difficult parts about being violated and being so afraid to even tell your family, because it's okay if I tell them, then I'm in trouble. And then the perpetrator sometimes would tell you, if you tell anybody, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to get a beating. They're not going to believe you. And so as a child, you believe all that. You internalize all of that and believe it. And so now you don't want to go tell because you don't want to get in more trouble. And that makes it so much easier for the perpetrator to continue doing what they're doing. And so this is where I make a plea to family members to, if you have kids, if you have family members who come and say, so and so did this to me as a child, even if they're 50 something at this point, please hear them, please listen, please believe it. Unless there's any evidence at all to clearly say that that didn't happen, but that's never clearly there. But just know, I'm talking to the general public right now, just know that for a person at any age to come and tell you, so and so did this to me, and it was an inappropriate sexual act, or even if it's just exposing them to pornography or something like that, that leaves sexual trauma as well. So don't push them away. Don't say you'll be in trouble. Listen. Sometimes, a lot of times, that's all they want. They want you to listen and hear them and believe what they have experienced, not what you think. But then again, as we have talked about this before, Sonia, sometimes the people who you are bringing this to do not have the mental capacity to deal with it, so they shut it down. Not because they don't believe you, but because it's a difficult thing to talk about, or because they themselves have had experienced some sexual violation and they don't know how to have that conversation at this point. So it's just a whole a range of things that could be going on. But are we supposed to be? If we got violated and we're bringing this, if I'm bringing this to you, Sonia, and you're my family member and you got violated too, I could only imagine that you would be thinking, what do I say to her? I feel that way too, and I have nobody to talk about. What am I going to say to her? These are just things I'm thinking that's going on in a person's head what do I say to her? Like, is I don't know. Some people really don't know. So, do we get angry with them?
No. You can't get angry because everyone doesn't have your experience. Everyone doesn't have your knowledge. Unfortunately for the victim, you're looking for a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the times you're not going to find it because of the things that you stated. They can't see you as a person being done that way or allowing someone to do it. They can't see the perpetrator doing those things, or it's uncomfortable and they don't want any part of it. Whatever their reason is, it's hard for the victim to speak up in that type of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere. When I was going through my healing, I actually had a childhood friend who had gone through a similar thing, but
Mm-hmm.
she spoke up.
Okay.
And when she spoke up, she was, villainized, like you hear so much. Um, the person ended up going to jail, but a lot of relationships and friendships were broken off because people don't know how to handle you. They don't know what to say or do, so they just kind of turn around and go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation with her helped me because it helped me to see I can get myself off of the hook, because you always think, what if I would have told someone? What if
Mm-hmm.
I would have went to the police? What if I?
The what ifs,
And
yeah.
she did those things and still was treated how I didn't want to be treated. Um, and so it made it easy knowing that she had gone through some of the same trauma as I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to open up. There was a situation when I was about 8, and I remember trying to teach an older cousin how to have an orgasm.
Mm. At 8.
It didn't, until I said it out loud, it didn't register to me just how wrong that was.
Mm.
Why does an 8-year-old know about an orgasm and how to have somebody else have it?
I want to know, Sonia. You tell me, Sonia.
And she cried with me on the phone. Like,
Oh.
I was just like, oh my God, because she got silent.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through the emotions of the shock of what I just said, actually hearing it,
Mm-hmm.
and that someone didn't treat me different after they heard it. And what she said to me was, if I was there right now, I would just hold you and we could just cry.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how long I've been just wanting to hear that from someone?
Mm-hmm. I can
We go
tell you.
through life as a parent, as, a sister, a cousin, whatever. Everyone expects you to be strong. Showing
Mm.
emotion was not, readily
Yeah.
accepted.
Yeah.
You're being a little weenie if you get emotional.
Cry.
And so people don't understand that sometimes you just need to be validated. Just to know that someone hears you and sees you. And if anyone is listening and they know someone, even if they haven't gone through it themselves, just do everything that you can to just listen. You don't have to have this groundbreaking advice or anything. Just
Mm-hmm.
be empathetic, sympathize with what they're saying,
Yeah.
because it's coming from a hurt place and it's hard to talk about it.
Yes. Yes. And there's so much to talk about, Sonia, with this, and we have maybe about 10 minutes, and I definitely would want to continue and just like go through so much with you. But at this time, I want to tell you, you have permission to cry about it. You have permission. You don't have to feel that I have to be the strong person. I have to be the one who, keep all of this in and not shed a tear about it. Cry. Cry. I don't want you to have to fight those tears. I want you to let those tears just flow. Because a lot of times that's what our bodies need. I see it as I say my tears are coming from my body is saying what it wants to say with my tears. The things that I cannot put in words, my body is telling it with tears. And I
Hmm.
want you to feel validated that I hear you. I've always heard you. And I'm hearing you now. And I want to tell you again, you should not carry that guilt. Here's your permission. A lot of times we need permission. We need permission to let certain things go. And I'm not telling you, oh, let it go. No, we are going to fight for this together. We are going to heal for this together. But I am giving you permission to let go of that guilt. That little girl who kept holding on to that guilt, that what happened to her was her fault, throw that out right now. I'm validating that it was not your fault. So that's one part that we can just get out. And so, as usual, when we have our webinars or talks, I always want to make sure you're grounded, you leave grounded. So, how are you feeling right now?
Um, it's kind of hard going back over some of that because of the feelings that are behind,
Mm-hmm.
that, but it feels good to actually talk and let it out. And it
Absolutely.
feels good to not be embarrassed by it.
No need.
Um, for a while, it makes you feel unworthy, it devalues you, but it's more internal than anything.
There you go. And
Because you feel like no one is willing to talk about this, so this must be really bad. I
okay.
must be a horrible person, or,
Yeah.
and it's not. It's not. So it feels good to talk about it. And if my trauma can help someone else feel like they're not alone, then I'm willing to share, even if it's just one person that, feels like I can open up, or I'm going to go seek help, or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then I didn't go through it for nothing.
Oh, you know. And I am sure that your story and you sharing, again, let those tears out. I'm here. I can hear you. I'm hearing you. I see you. And although we don't have much more time here, I want you to know that we will connect after we end here so we can talk about what needs to be talked about before you go off to enjoy the rest of your evening. And it's going to take some time, but it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter your profession, it doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your color. I'm here to say, my name is Nashiba Barzi, and I am a lawyer, and I am a psychotherapist, and I had to work my way through healing from sexual trauma. I have been violated, but it's not keeping me there. And I knew it wasn't going to keep me there. Making me a lawyer didn't shield me from being violated. Being married didn't shield me from being violated. This is the next topic, another topic. Being sexually violated by a spouse. Is that possible? Because in modern times, there's no such thing. We're going to talk about that too. But I said it. My name's Nashiba Barzi. I'm a lawyer, I'm this, I'm that, I've taught, I'm a professor, I'm all that stuff. But I was violated. I don't want any of you listening, I don't want you, Sonia, anyone to feel ashamed of it. We can work for this together. And again, we're about to end here, and I haven't been able to see if anyone sent any questions. But if you have those questions, please, you can send me a message through Facebook Messenger, or you can send me an email. My email is therapist@nashibabazi.com. Again, it's therapist@nashibabazi.com. And please, let's just continue to encourage each other. And be a friend, to a family member, and don't ask. I'm going to leave you guys with this. Don't ask, why did you stay? Or why are you staying? Or all of that. No, I want you to say, help me understand why you stayed in that situation or why you are staying in that situation. And so I'll end with that. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll do it again. And Sonia, let's connect after, okay?
Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. You're welcome.
Bye bye.